Good morning and welcome to today the news on Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Olushaki and I'm with my co-host
Precious Chukwudi.
Of course, it's a beautiful Monday morning starting the week. How was the weekend?
It was long, like really long, but then it was still short too.
It was short. You know, that moment waking up on Monday morning, something you're not expecting. You just be wishing it's going to Saturday. But let's start with the front page of Vanguard. Of course, here we have a subsidy. Past government couldn't take action, and that's coming from Presidency. You can see that on page 35. The rider, electricity uncertainty as discos bid to pull out. You can see that on page 5. On page 30, we have Edo, I'll spend my last kobo back in Ize-Iyamu, and that's coming from Okumba. And on page 10, federal government shouldn't monopolize security structure, and that's coming from General Kirinade. USSD services threatened as telcos banks bigger, and the riders, telcos may withdraw service link over 17 billion naira debt, cashless society, NCC, CBN's MOU to suffer. 40 million USSD users risk being cut off. And lastly, on the front page of Vanguard, of course, there's a data here. Data here says gasoline prices, showing gasoline prices in Nigeria per liter in some West African countries as at 31st of August 2020. And price in Nigeria is at 6th of September 2020. And from the front page of Vanguard, we move straight to the Punch newspaper.
And on the Punch newspaper, we have main headlines: COVID-19 pandemic, experts warns of massive surge as Nigerians abandon face mask. The riders, we have supporters abandon wearing face mask, don't observe social distancing at campaigns, NMA says. Also, expect more trouble, Tomori. Shortening safety protocols dangerous, says virologist. And stories above, we are prepared to foil terror attack on FCT DHQ. You can see that story on page 18. And on page 8, money spraying at Buhari's daughter's wedding sparks debate. Also on page 2, federal government has begun investigating P&ID bribe takers, AGF says. And stories beneath, we have curfew, police detain Lagos woman as pregnant woman baby dies. Interpol arrests 2 men for 14 million euro PPE contract fraud. You can see that story on page 13. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, we have a chemical kills 3 timber operators in Ondo Forest. You can see that story on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. Away from the Punch newspaper, we move straight to the Nation.
And on the front page of the Nation story, Panic red alert in Abuja over Boko Haram camps. The rider leaked memo causes anxiety. DHQ police to public, we are on top of situation. You can see more of that on the front page, and it continues on page 2. Malami, Nigeria didn't make $200 million cash deposit on PNID. Subsidy remover, a tough decision, says Presidency. And on the stories above, on pages 17 to 24, top 7 banks grossed 1.77 trillion naira in 6 months. Osun rescues children, 47 children from baby factory. You can see that on page 6. YNWC was dissolved by APC. Party criticizes suits. You can see that on page 8. Ancon seizes hotels assets over 600 million debts. You can see that on page 7. And also on pages 4 to 5, we have Ize-Iyamu to reverse neglect of traders. How defeat Oshomole in his ward at Tribal Boast, and APC youth alleged attack by thugs at Eson Central. And lastly, on the front page of the Nation, we have a PDP urged INEC security agencies to be neutral. And that's all we have on the front pages of the papers. We'll be going on a short break now. And when we return, of course, we'll be analyzing the front pages. Stay with us. We'll be back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Today in the News on Vanguard Live. And my name is Damilola Obushaki. I'm with my co-host. Of course, we've analyzed the front page. We've reviewed the front pages of some of the papers. And right now, this is the analysis segment. Of course, where we analyze the stories here. And of course, I'll be starting with that of subsidy. Past government couldn't take action. So the electricity distribution companies, DISCOs, petitioned the Bureau of Public Enterprise, that's BPE, seeking to return the privatization, they privatized the power asset to government over what they considered as undue interference in their operations. Investigation, of course, according to investigation, indicated that the action was propelled by recent developments, especially the planned forensic audits of the operations of DISCOs and the directive of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, that banks should commence collection of tariff targeted at enabling them recover huge loans granted to them to buy assets. And also, in reaction, the Director General of the Bureau of Public Enterprise, that's Mr. Alex Oko, said that his organization has not received any communication from DISCOs to the effect that they want to relinquish the distribution companies. And in this word, it said there have been effort toward transparency and the collections of revenue in the sector, which was why the CBN gave the directive to banks on the collection of electricity revenues. Meanwhile, DISCOs, according to NECAN, that's Network for Electricity Consumers Agency of Nigeria, the Secretary General, Mr. Oket, says they've been reliable, informed that the DISCOs have declared their readiness to hand over power assets back to DISCOs, back to government, alleging that government has failed to keep its own parts of the agreement. So that's what, DISCOs and also other things that are saying about electricity. But when you're talking about this electricity for some time now, you can agree with me that they've actually been issues, and we see it on the paper, especially with fuel being increased and electricity being increased.
Also, the fact that Nigerians are paying that they pay exorbitant fees on lights, and also they don't get adequate light supply, and then now electricity tariff has increased, so it's a lot of.
I think judging from the reactions from the streets, I was in one of the streets in Ikorodu, and after trying to just get their reactions on the stories, and one of them was like, for over 6 months now they've not had lights, and all of a sudden they just heard that the price of the electricity has increased, and when it comes you expect them to pay and all that. So that's why Nigerians are really, really complaining about this price, and of course other organizations are also talking about it.
All right, moving on, COVID-19 pandemic, and experts warns of massive surge as Nigerians abandon face masks. And Nigerians are abandoning the use of face masks and other safety protocols as rates of COVID-19 infections are declining in the country. But the Nigerian Medical Association and virologists said that with lax adherence to safety protocols, Nigeria could witness another coronavirus surge as schools prepare for full resumption. Also, they warned that with resumption of international flights, failure to abide by COVID-19 protocols could trigger more cases of the deadly virus. Also, there are reports that face masks have been abandoned, except in banks where customers are forced to use them. And if you really check it out, it's the truth. I mean, when we started this whole coronavirus pandemic situation, everybody was really very careful. You wash your hands like 10 times, even more than that. In a day to day, that some people, you notice their hands are even becoming very white as a result of, washing their hands. And you'd also notice that people wearing their face mask everywhere, like everywhere you go. You even notice that extent of, people adhering to social distancing. But of late now, like I literally walk on the road and I see that you can count the people who have their face masks on. Most people just won't go out without having it. It was a problem. Me, I think I've gotten used to wearing it because I would wear it every day. Going when I go out and I'm in
the question with people now is you even ask them. I don't think you hardly see people now with hand sanitizer like we were seeing it in the first, of course, during the first period. Now,
and they are reporting that we could go back to how bad it was because we're not taking preventive measures, and it's good that we know that this thing is still there, but then we should still stick to the same protocols that we've been observing, the cleanliness, the hygiene and whatnot. That's what we should still stick to.
I think, of course, that's the best thing now because nobody knows when this COVID-19 era, of course, will end. And until the vaccine is found, I think it's better for everybody to just protect themselves and keep their families safe.
True.
That's the best thing. Now, moving on, we'll go to, of course, the Petroleum Products Marketing Company, that's PPMC, on Wednesday announced a new ex-depot price of 151.56 naira for petrol, raising pump price of the product to 161 naira per liter. A development some see as insensitive in view of the prevailing COVID-19 induced economic hardship. But the move is one economic expert would certainly describe as long overdue, largely because it signals the federal government desire to stop the corruption-breeding fuel subsidy regime, which had benefited only a few. And subsidy payments had continued to increase over the years, hitting 1 naira. And according to, of course, people said this is because the burden to shedding with the withdrawal of subsidy payment, which has inevitably led to the increase in pump price. And experts agree that this cannot be sustainable in a country such as Nigeria, where the subsidy fund could do a lot to develop a critical infrastructure to grow the economic. Of course, the argument against subsidy payment is buttressed by the current lopsided situation where Nigerians' low fuel prices encourage the smuggling of the product to other West African countries where prices are far higher. And of course, for instance, in the Niger Republic, which borders Castina State, petrol sells for 346 naira per liter, while in Cameroon it sells for 449 naira per liter. In Ghana it is 332 naira per liter, while in Benin Republic down south it sells for 359 naira per liter. Of course, if you want to see more of the African countries, you can see the data on the front page of Vanguard newspaper. But this argument that Nigeria is an oil-producing country should provide petrol at cheaper cost does not hold water, since the country has relied largely on importation for local consumption. Of course, that's what people are saying. I'm sure you saw the front page of this where the other prices are. And Nigerians actually don't agree with this data. They are just saying that because other countries their prices are higher does not mean that Nigeria price should also be high. Considering that Nigeria is the only, I think, one of the only African countries selling fuel for less than 200 naira per liter as of now. So Nigerians are really saying that even considering the economy and of course considering the money and everything, they are really going through the hardship. That right now it's not when they are supposed to increase the price of fuel.
That's the reason why I think lots of CSOs are calling out for the price should be reversed, because it doesn't make any sense for us to be having increase in electricity tariff, increase in petroleum products, increase in DSTV subscription, increase in literally almost everything, and then there's no increase in salary, there's no increase in there's no increase in our standard of living,
deduction in salary,
so everything seems to be getting so high, and yet we're still suffering. And still brings me back to when Onaye Kaikama asked the federal government to reverse new electricity tariff and fuel price, and the senior Catholic prelates have asked the federal government to reverse the latest increment in the price of petrol and electricity. And the Archbishop, while condemning the increase in fuel price, said it will cause more Nigerians to suffer. They spoke during the first General Assembly of Abuja Actus Diocese at Our Lady Queen of Nigeria Pro Cathedral weekend. And it will be recalled that the Petroleum Products Marketing Company, that's PPMC, recently increased the ex-depot price of petrol from 138.62 naira to 151.56 naira per liter. Consequently, petroleum marketers checked the price of the product from 48 naira to between 158 and 162 naira per litre. And earlier, the electricity distribution company DISCOs in the country has begun implementation of a new cost-reflective electricity tariff. And reacting, Archbishop Emeritus, His Eminence John Cardinal Onayekon, lamented that the price increase did not come with a boost in the average income of citizens. Exactly what we're talking about. Like people's income did not increase. So when because if you're going to increase price, then it's because of the cost of living of people have increased, which means their salary has increased. Things have changed with them, but instead it's decreasing because in this COVID times, a lot of people got their salary slashed. It didn't increase. So how then do you increase all these things? Also, he said the government had previously assured Nigerians that it would make life better for them, adding, however, that the reverse was now the case. Rather. Like the government says, okay, we'll make our Nigerian people life, very, very comfortable. But now, that's not what he said. He said Mr. President, in the same breath, was telling us he was going to do all he can to make life easier for Nigerians. And one of the things he can do is those increases. So he's asking that the federal government puts the fuel price increase and electricity tariff increase in a wider context. He said we shouldn't complain about the fuel price increase if the salaries are also increased, and that the problem comes when you leave the people with nothing to eat. I don't think the government is supposed to be doing that. They should find a way to make life livable for Nigerians, and that's what Cardinal Onayekon is saying. That the government should find a way to make life livable for Nigerians. Because people are, they are getting angry. Just last week on Friday, a man single-handedly by himself, without nobody, he was holding like placard and saying that, this petroleum price should be reversed, and also the electricity tariff should be reversed, because people are suffering. At every, juncture, everybody has how, life is affecting them. Do you understand? So with this increase, it comes a lot of problems for people.
Okay, now away for that, let's go to security. And of course, talking about security, it's General Akirinade, where he says federal government shouldn't monopolize security structure. So the retired military officer, General Alani Akirinade, has said that security architecture should not exclusively be controlled by the federal government, as effort to secure the nation should be community-driven rather than using a centralized structure. He said the federal government should not monopolize the control of security agencies at the expense of other federal units, which should, for the sake of proximity, should have an input in the structure. He further added that policing system in every country is naturally meant to be driven through community structure for excellence and effective intelligence gathering, which is the honors of security structure. The elder statement also stressed the need for the federal government to accommodate state policy by aligning all the regional security outfits, such as Amotekun and the Southwest, and ISBA in the north, among others, of course, into state policing structures. That's to metamorphose into state policing structures, while saying that policing structure is a dynamic phenomenon which must conform with contemporary circumstances. He emphasized that Nigeria as a nation should need to put a stop to any kind of suspicion due to agitation for state policing, saying the country only need institutional and constitutional mechanism to checkmate the arbitrary use of state policing structure. So that's what General Akirinade is saying. I think he's talking in support of this state policing, because that they should look for way that it can metamorphose into state policing and all that. Start talking about Amotekun and all that.
The level of insecurity in the country has really increased, and at this point, people are asking, do we start to protect ourselves? Do we not look onto our, security aids to help us again, because it's becoming a very big problem. So for you to have said that state policing, because everybody's beginning to look inwards, how best can they, protect themselves as a citizen of the country on its own?
And we know we're not talking about the state police, and of course we still have some issues, still talking about that Amotekmo and all that. But of course we hope it to be resolved and every other thing be done in the best interest of Nigerians. So what do you all?
Yes, well, moving straight to Edo 2020, I mean, it's just a few days to the Edo State election, and Okumba has said something, and he says, why I have decided to support Ize Iyamo against Obaseki. And according to the chairman, Ocean Marine Solution, Captain Hosa Okumba, he said he decided to support the All Progressive Congress candidate in September 19th governorship election in Edo State, that's Pastor Sagi Ize Iyamo, because the party will work to develop the state. And Okumba also said this in an interview in Abuja, where he described himself as a very close person to Governor Godwin Obaseki, but said the governor should not be allowed to get a second term. And he said, I will still consider Godwin my brother, but I don't consider him a leader because he doesn't have the attributes of a good leader, he said. And Okumba in the interview berated Obaseki, saying that a governor that could not manage 24 House of Assembly members from his own party, they were not in opposition or APC. Some of us worked to make that possible for him, so he could have a smooth ride, but he squandered the chance. It's only unfortunate that Osage Ize Iyamo, who also contested against him in 2016, is out there, and I am supporting him by default. And of course, I want a better Edo State, and that's all I can say. And this is coming just some few days
to that. I think the Edo election is coming up.
And Okumba is coming from the part where he says that he doesn't consider Obaseki as a good leader, and that he thinks that Ize Iyamo is much more of a better leader, even though he considers Obaseki to be his brother. I don't understand. How do you consider somebody to be your brother and then you don't consider him to be a good leader?
I think what he's trying to say is that he's going for the good and for better leader, and that of supporting someone. But anyway, that's of course in their own circle.
Of course, we're going to still leave it to the people of Edo State to decide on September 19th on who they feel is a better leader and who they think is a good. Because all these things, different people come with different things to say about the Edo 2020. We really pray that the election will be free and fair, so people can actually vote who they really want in the elections.
Okay, I think that's all you have on the stories.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, of course, before we go, let's just look at what Mr. and Mrs. are saying. And of course, Mrs. is the first person speaking. She says that you don't want the double-breasted jacket sent to you from London because it's for women. You are a bushman. And Mr. replied, it's for women because they have two breasts. That's why the jacket is called double-breasted.
Talking about Mr. and Mrs. always coming for each other. But then, don't you like the double-breasted jacket?
Double-breasted jacket,
two buttons down and all. Very fine. I don't know what Mr. is saying.
No, he said because it's written there double-breasted, so he feels it's for women that have two breasts.
But I like how they cruise with each other.
Okay, let's quickly look at, of course, the sports. And of course, here we have a message to rejoin Barca training today. Talking about Messi, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this Messi issue and Barca, him trying to leave Barca to join Man City or any other team. But finally, he announced on Friday that, of course, he will be joining, he will still be staying in Barca for the meantime. I think to avoid some of the contract clause and, of course, some of the law stuffs. And, of course, it will be under their new coach, that's Koeman, who for the first time who was I think former Everton boss, as of course he took over Kike as a Barca coach last month. And of course Messi has not trained with Barca for some time, where people are really talking about it, that why he's still part of Barca, so he should have really gone for training even if he wants to move to other clubs. But I think it's a good thing that he says he's planning to still, of course, stay with Barcelona and rejoin their training today, because we have people questioning his loyalty, where he says, of course, we can still go back in time where people believe that Barca is actually going to retire, Messi is going to retire in Barcelona. And after looking at, of course, the UEFA Nations League, the results, of course, Hungary to Russia, of course, and Russia, of course, 3 and Hungary 2, and Switzerland and Germany, of course, it was a draw. And today's fixtures and UEFA Nations League, of course, Kazakhstan will be home to Belarus, and Netherlands will be home to Italy, and Austria will be home to Romania. And that's all we have for you on today, the news on Vanguard Live. Don't forget that you can always like and follow us on our social media platforms that are showing on your screen, or visit our website www.vanguardngr.com to get more of our top stories and what is going on around the world. Don't forget that any of our shows, you can always leave your opinion in this comment section. Protect yourself, safeguard yourself, as that's the best way, of course, to also protect your families and your neighbor. It's bye from me, Damlala Ogushaki, and also from our co-host
Precious Chukudi. Have a fantastic day. Thank you for watching.